All right. Welcome, everyone, to today's ARF Reimagine Great Mind Awards, Conversations with Great Minds. I'm Scott McDonald, President and CEO of the ARF, and delighted to have you with us today for a festive virtual occasion. I want to thank GFK MRI Simmons for being our sponsor today. And just want to note that the ARF Great Mind Awards were established to honor individuals and celebrate leaders across the advertising and marketing research industry. Before we begin, I want to congratulate all of the winners in this year's award. And I'm assuming that all of you are supplying your own cheering and clapping and the laugh track that we're so fond of. At your various locations at home. It's been an unusual year, to say the least, and in order to truly honor our winners, we decided to feature them throughout various events during the month of August, culminating in today's Conversations with Great Minds. The ARF has done a lot of work lately and presented data on how much creativity, how much spark can be provided by algorithms as opposed to the good old wetware that we have traditionally relied upon. And the bottom line is that, algorithms can only take you so far in pattern recognition. You need real human intelligence to interpret, to provide context, metaphor, synthesis, and what we might colloquially call spark. So almost everyone who's honored today is a great example of that. So to kick off the event, I'd like to introduce Greg Lindner, who will be interviewing the Chief Marketing Officer Award winner. Greg is the President of the Americas for GFK and Chairman of the MRI Simmons joint venture. He's a media research industry veteran and has extensive expertise in leading large syndicated media research organizations while focusing on innovation and quality metrics. And he's also a member of the ARF Board of Trustees. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Scott. GFK MRI Simmons is honored to be the sponsor of this year's ARF Great Mind Awards. The ARF has added a new category to the 2020 Great Mind Awards lineup to honor a Chief Marketing Officer. Our aim was to award a CMO who has embraced research, insights, and data analytics to drive growth, brand value, and better consumer experience. I'd say that the committee couldn't have decided on a better recipient for this award. Showcasing leaders that consistently use data-driven decision-making is so important, especially as brands try to navigate these uncertain times. With that, I'm pleased to introduce Greg Lyons, CMO at PepsiCo Beverages North America, the first ever Chief Marketing Officer Great Minds Award winner. Greg has been with PepsiCo for 20 years and was appointed to CMO in January 2017. Since then, he has focused on creating an integrated insights and analytics team across PepsiCo, rooted in deep consumer empathy. Under his leadership, marketing is blending the art of human-first approach with the science of a robust data and analytics organization. Congratulations, Greg, and welcome.
Hey, Greg, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks for the nice intro.
You're welcome. From one Greg to another.
There you go.
So just to start out on a couple of the opening questions, let me ask you the first one is, how do you define success as a CMO?
Well, we spent some time figuring out what our role as a marketing department is in the broader PepsiCo. And it's pretty simple. It's two things. We want to accelerate the company's growth and define its future. And so those are two things that we focus on a lot. And I feel pretty good that we're growing at a good clip right now and are very clear where we're heading. As CMO and running a marketing department, there's two amazing assets that I have the privilege to run. One is our brands, and the other is our people. And I think I define success as making sure that both of those are thriving, that our brands are very clear on what they stand for, and that they are authentically helping make people's lives better, and that our people in the department are feeling valued and are having robust careers and all care about each other.
Thank you for that. It says one of the main goals on coming on as a CMO was to bring the business closer to the consumers than it had ever been before. How were you able to achieve that?
Yeah, consumer centricity is incredibly important to us. And I think the entire company needs to be consumer centric for it to be successful. And that starts with the marketing department. And we've been on a journey. And when we talk about consumer centricity, we look at it in a couple ways. One is to make sure that we are becoming much more data informed about our consumer and about the decisions we make in marketing. And so we've done a couple of things over the last couple of years to help us be more data informed in our decision making. We created what we call the Media Hub in North America. And what that is a lot of really smart, much smarter than I am people, a bunch of data scientists who created an algorithm to measure the effectiveness of our media and to do it quickly so we can make decisions almost in real time to allocate resources towards the most effective marketing communications that we have to maximize ROI. Another thing we did with our innovation is that we've created a proprietary model where we do a lot of social listening to figure out the attributes in beverages that people are talking about the most all over the world, certainly in the US. We do scrubs of social media to make sure we understand what beverage concoctions people are making in their own kitchens. Right now in COVID, lots of people are making smoothies with lots of immunity boosts in them. And we look at lots of other data from around the world, and both in e-commerce and in retail as to what innovation is being successful. And so that helps inform our innovation strategy. So lots more data that we're bringing to how we make decisions on media and innovation. But if you only look at data and you don't develop real empathy for the people who enjoy your brands and your products as well, I feel that you're not going to be as successful in the long run. And so we've also developed a couple of programs to really enhance our marketers' empathy of the people who drink our products. And so we have a program called Human Eyes, where each of the people in the marketing department spend some time with their core consumers and talks to them over Zoom or Skype and understands what's important in their life and what's important in their beverage habits, but more importantly, what drives their decision making and what they think is what drives them as human beings. And so we're developing that empathy so we can make better decisions. And then the last thing we did is we've got 4 divisions that we've created with marketing and insights teams all over the United States. So we're understanding people at a local level more so. Imagine running Mountain Dew if you're living in New York City. It's not, you don't really understand what your core user is going through because most of the volume of Mountain Dew is enjoyed in the middle of the country. And so just trying to get more data informed and build our empathy is the journey we've been on.
Thank you for that. And just as an aside, I enjoy Diet Mountain Dew wherever I go.
Excellent. Well, free case coming your way, Greg.
Using data to drive decision-making and creative execution is more relevant than ever before. What does this mean for the future of CPG in the post or current COVID era?
Yeah, everyone needs to be investing more in data. We certainly are. It's just making us smarter, and it's making our communication more effective and more efficient. The future is going to be the future of marketing is getting the right message to the right person at the right time. And we're getting better at that. The more we democratize and use the data that we have, and the more we build our first-party database. Let me give you an example of that. We know if someone's drinking Diet Coke, which I don't know why anyone would drink that product, but if someone were drinking Diet Coke, we've come out with a wonderful sparkling water brand called Bubbly. And we know that if we want to get a Diet Coke drinker to try Bubbly, the message that we're going to send them is a little bit different than if we want to get a LaCroix drinker to drink Bubbly. So a Diet Coke drinker right now loves the bubbles of Diet Coke, loves that it's 0 calorie, doesn't feel amazing about the artificial sweeteners in it. And so we'll talk about the great bubbles and bubbly and the carbonation, and also that it's got no artificial sweeteners when we're targeting a Diet Coke drinker. If we were targeting a LaCroix drinker, we just talk about the amazing flavor variety that Bubbly has and how it's the best tasting sparkling water there is. And we know exactly which one is more effective based on data. And so I think a lot more of that going forward. So again, we can get the right message to the right person. Another thing that we've just been doing with data, which is interesting through this pandemic, is we know our marketing is more effective when people are shopping across all channels, especially convenience stores. And in the pandemic, the traffic to convenience stores has been going down as people are worried about their health and are staying at home more. But we look at traffic data, we use Place IQ, and we know based on people's cell phones in each geography if they're going to convenience stores or not, more than they were a year ago. And so we are spending more in the places that people are, higher traffic is happening across the channels than where people are more staying home, because we know that that'll be more effective. So stuff like that, which is pretty intuitive and pretty simple. The smarter and smarter we get, the better that our marketing is going to be. And I really see post-COVID all of this, these tools that we're really honing during COVID are going to be incredibly important going forward.
No, and I think all companies have needed to do different things during a pandemic or in response to the pandemic. Are there other areas where Pepsi has holistically approached marketing and company positions during this time?
Yeah, I've been really proud of PepsiCo during this pandemic. I mean, the first thing we needed to do is make sure all of our employees were safe and figure out how to keep the business running in this difficult time. And so it cost us a lot more during COVID to get our products to the shelf than it did before it. We need to make sure that we have all the protocols in place to keep everyone safe, and the cleaning protocols and the masks and the PPE and everything. And again, I'm really proud of how safe we're keeping our employees and how we're valuing our employees during this time. And then I'm also proud of our brands. The companies that have brands who are incredibly clear on their purpose and that are authentically trying to help people in this time, that are going to understand what people are going through and provide help, whether that's a donation, of which we've done a lot of. I think Pepsi's donated over $50 million to COVID relief across a number of different initiatives. Or it's just bringing a smile to someone's face or providing them some entertainment at home. Those brands that are authentically making people's lives better in a way that's authentic to what they stand for are the ones that are going to win coming out of this. And I feel that we've done a good job with that.
Thank you for that response. I enjoyed reading up on this. I was hoping you could discuss the new Pepsi D2C offerings, which opened during the pandemic, the pantryshop.com and the snacks.com.
Yeah, it was that was quick for us to get those going, and I'm really proud of the team for getting that moving so quickly. Listen, that is something that we're just trying to learn with. Obviously, there's a huge shift to e-commerce during this time. Probably moved that industry forward 3 to 5 years on people ordering food and beverage. And this is a way for us to learn what people's habits during when they're more at home, and to accumulate some data so we can keep in touch with them afterwards. And we're off to a pretty good start with it. And again, I'm really proud that the team got it up so quickly.
Thank you. Could you discuss a little bit why empathy matters today, and how we guard against corporate consumer relationships being only of a transactional nature?
Sure. I talked a little bit about this before. Empathy is more important than ever right now. And I see empathy in every part of my life. I think the pandemic is making it life much more difficult for a lot of us. And imagine whether you've lost your job or lost a loved one before their time. Like, that is hard, difficult, unfair. But I do think something good is coming out of that pandemic, and it has to do with empathy. I see it in my community in Connecticut. We care about each other, and we're helping each other more than ever. We are going out of our way to really provide for the elderly and make sure that they're safe. I see it in our department. When we're on Zoom together, we all are connecting at a deeper level, understanding each other as human beings, being there for each other, learning what everyone else is going through and trying to help each other. And I see it in our brands as well, when we're trying to authentically help people at a local level and make their lives better. And while data is incredibly important, and it's going to be critical for us to be more data informed in our marketing going forward, data without empathy is not going to drive as much success as doing both and making sure that you really understand your consumer at a deep human level.
No, I think it's very well said. Greg, are there any final comments or thoughts you would like to leave us with?
Other than I just really appreciate you, Greg, for taking the time to do this, and the ARF for prioritizing an award like this. I think it's making us all better. So thank you both very much.
No, and I appreciate you giving your time to this. So thank you. And again, congratulations from the ARF and being the first recipient of this award.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you, Greg and Greg both, and wonderful to hear not only about how data is important in in managing global brands in the pandemic, but also empathy and the central role of that. Next up is Leslie Wood, who will be interviewing Josh Chasen, the Chief Measurability Officer at VideoAmp, and of course, the 2020 Irwin Efron Demystification Award winner. So this award was established back in 2014 following Irwin's death, and it pays tribute to a legendary character, widely known as the father of recency planning, but to those who knew him also, an extraordinary individual, a bit of a gadfly, an imp, a wit, and someone who took communication very, very seriously, both written and verbal, and had this great knack for taking complex ideas and making them understandable in everyday English. And so our award winner this year, Josh Chasen, is someone that I think all of those traits very much apply to. In his style of communication, his ability to distill things, get to the essence, but also make it kind of humorous and fun and vivid. In all of the years that we've offered this award, I would say there never was such an easy consensus achieved by the award committee in identifying this year's winner. So let me welcome Leslie to the stage to take us forward. Leslie, you're muted.
Me.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. That was so sweet. So I'm here to introduce Josh. It's hard to imagine there's anyone in this audience that doesn't already know him well, perhaps even better than I do. But Josh is a true media researcher and an audience measurement professional. He embodies those characteristics. He's been involved in the design and management and measurement services across the full spectrum of media. TV at Arbitron and ComScore. He's been involved in radio and out of home at Arbitron, newspapers at Scarborough, magazines at Simmons Research, and digital at ComScore. So across all media, Josh has made continuous improvements. He has 2 marketing degrees, a BS from NYU and an MBA from Pace. So think about it. We've got statistics and marketing, and Josh really is there sort of central to, he's put the 2 together, and he's living in that overlap between these fields. At both Arbitron, where he was for 17 years, and ComScore, where he was for 13 years. He led the research, and the researchers really thought of him as one of themselves, but also the salespeople. His business side really drove the value proposition. Josh has stood out for both of his extensive writing and the continuous many improvements to the measurement services his customers have relied on. I asked Steve Millman for a few words. He was instrumental in the submission of Josh for this award. So Steve's words are, Erwin Efron used to say of himself, "I'm a media researcher who writes." If that's the case, then Josh Chasin, a colleague and protege of Erwin, has been dutifully following in his footsteps. Josh's prodigious writing on media and measurement are a delight to read, both for his knack of making extraordinary complex elements of the media ecosystem approachable to everyone, and for the way he uses humor to keep audiences engaged. To me, Josh has been a dear friend and mentor, and he embodies the sort of kind, generous, insightful person our profession dearly needs. Well, I couldn't agree more, Steve. Thank you so much for sharing those great words. And now I'd like to congratulate Josh on winning the 2020 Erwin Efron Demystification Award. Josh?
Thank you, Leslie. Thanks, Leslie. And hi, everybody.
So this award is named for Erwin Efron, and he was so central to translating these complex ideas. And that's certainly into really usable pieces for the industry. And, certainly that was, one of the guiding lights for me. I am not a writer. You are, clearly. I always worked hard to emulate Erwin and have done my best. But, my idea is we make it more and more complicated. I'm a researcher, and the key is to take all that chaos and sort of pull it together and make it into something that's understandable. As an excellent consummate writer that you are, how else did Erwin influence you? And what would you say about how he might look at the media environment today?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Erwin, I'll say first off that I was privileged to be able to consider Erwin a colleague, a mentor, a role model, and a friend. He taught me a ton. He gave me great advice when I in the early 2000s, when I went out and started my own consulting practice. Erwin, who had been a consultant for quite some time by then, took me to lunch and gave me some advice on how to do that, how to run the business, how to prospect, how to price, and it was just invaluable. So anyway, I want to, can I do a book plug here? Can I do
Yes,
book
a
plug?
wonderful
Yeah.
book plug.
Yeah,
Great book.
this is Erwin's book on media planning. It's really a collection of his writings, his collection of his essays. And I heartily recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. I was going to make the same comment that Leslie shared from Stephen, which is that Erwin used to say that he was a media researcher who writes. And he did that with a style and a grace and a panache, I think, that were all his own. So I want to say that two things. One is, when they first made this award back in 2014, like Scott was saying, I really wanted to win it. And I really wanted to win it because Erwin was such a role model for me. And then when I saw who was winning it, I said to myself, forget it. Like, that's a whole other level of people. And I put it out of my mind. So discovering this year that I won this award was, and joining such illustrious company, people like Bill Harvey, who won the first award, and Erwin Gottlieb, and David Poltrack, and Jim Spaeth, and of course, Leslie. Really, it was humbling, and people who know me know that I'm rarely at a loss for words, but I was truly humbled and speechless over this. So what would Erwin have to say about today's media landscape? So Erwin believed in reach and recency. We think about media in terms of reach and frequency. He was a champion of recency as opposed to frequency. This is in a lot of his books, but he used to say to me, my purchase cycle is the cereal box is empty. He believed that the purpose of advertising was to kind of remind us when we were close to purchase. He evangelized for lower but more prolonged media weight. So in other words, reach as many people as you can, and if that means lower frequency, that's fine, less frequency. You want to maximize your reach against consumers when their box is empty, metaphorically speaking. So his notion was, you want to plan against purchases, not consumers. But for most categories, purchases are made every week. So you need to think about advertising every week. Don't go on the air and come off the air. Buy as much reach as you can every week of the year. And if that comes at the expense of frequency for budgetary concerns, then that's the thing that's going to have to give. And of course, there are always budgetary concerns. So I think if Erwin was around today, he would look at all the data that we have at our fingertips. And he would think that we don't need geographic boundaries anymore to discover what a good market is. Like he thought that target markets, for example, a national brand that bought more advertising in local markets where they did very well, that was an example of targeting. Now we can define markets where we do well without worrying about geographic boundaries. We actually can find data on the actual consumers that might be buying our product. And we don't even have to speculate about purchase cycle anymore. We can use data to understand what consumers might be in the market when. And that's why the concept of the auto intender is so valuable in the digital space. So I think Erwin would have talked about using data to find our prospects and customers when the metaphorical box is empty, whatever the category is. And then using data to keep our ads in front of consumers when they're ready to buy. One other thing, Rose, I can't help but think he'd be a little bit suspect at the way that we've all let big data maybe usurp strategy. Data is no substitute for strategy.
Yeah, I would agree. I think strategy was a very strong piece of Erwin, definitely.
Yep.
So, there's many ways to be a media researcher, data scientist today. There are many, many ways. And sometimes it can be a bully pulpit, for a particular agenda. Some, it can be improving measurement. I certainly see it as a place for innovation. Tell me, what role have you felt you most fit in the media research world?
Yeah, so I think, I see myself as a media research and an audience measurement professional. I've worked in audience measurement across all media. And I think the things where I've had the most impact in my career and the things that I've probably found the most invigorating were working with a team to build measurement solutions. So it's the whole sort of like, rolling up your sleeves and sitting at a table with colleagues and just designing and engineering something. I love making new stuff. And I will speak about an experience I had at ComScore when we were, in the digital space, there was this battle between server side measurement and panel or consumer side measurement, and which one was the better. And for the most part, audience measurement services use panels. And we worked on an initiative at ComScore that's now become industry standard, which was to integrate panel measurement to understand what people are doing, and site-centric or census measurement to understand exactly what was happening at the web entity. And to
That was a lot of big work from you. That was really important work you did.
Yeah, and I want to say I did it. I would want to say I was at the table when it was done. And, there's a whole list of people, but we, at ComScore at that time, there was something called the Beacon War Room. And there was a conference room in Reston, Virginia, with a meeting that never ended. Literally never ended. And like, if I was in Reston, I would go and sit in on the meeting for a few hours. And people came in and out of the meeting. But in that room, we designed this UDM, Unified Digital Measurement. And that was exciting and invigorating. And I also will say that the whole thing started when a couple of our clients in Canada, especially newspapers, were concerned that panel measurement didn't do a good job for measuring newspaper digital audiences because a lot of their traffic came during the workday and it was difficult to measure people at work. So we did a project with them that became known as the Canadian Beacon Test, where we were going to tag their websites and see what would happen if we integrated that tagged data with panel data. And I remember having dinner with two of my Canadian colleagues at the time, and the three of us agreeing that if this test worked, we had as the company to be willing to commit to changing how we did the measurement. And the test worked, and we made the change. And now the idea of integrating site-centric or server-based measurement to audience measurement is a given. But at the time, it was revolutionary, and it was very exciting to be part of that process, along with dozens, if not hundreds, of other colleagues of mine at ComScore.
Cool. Do you think there's a role? What role do you see in this researcher world that's going to be most critical for the future? Is there a type of researcher that you think is the ability to actually sit at a table and collaborate, or is there some piece that you think is important there?
Well, watching as many political news shows as I do, I'm going to answer the question I want to answer. And that's this. Okay, so the way I'm going to answer your question is I'm going to say where I think, what I think has been happening in the business and what that suggests we need to be doing going forward as researchers, right? So when I started at Arbitron in the statistical services department. And I always say that I got a great grounding in audience measurement and media research because I worked for the statistics group. I used to say that if I worked at Goodyear, it would be like spending the first 7 years of my career in rubber. But we always built our industry, audience measurement, advertising research, based on the toolkit of sampling, right? Survey measurement, panel measurement. And technology has broken that construct. You can't do what we want to do anymore by using the tools, the traditional toolkit of survey measurement, right? But technology kind of takes with one hand and gives with the other, because we have things like set-top box data. We have digital census data. We have ad server logs, identity graphs, geolocation. So there is a plethora of data. We're drowning in data, really. I've said you can't swing a dead cat without creating new data, especially if the cat's wearing a Fitbit. But
Or carrying a cell phone.
yeah. So we can't, so we have tons of data assets. They are typically extremely large, extremely useful, but critically flawed for the purpose at hand because they're not designed.
Very biased. I agree.
Yeah, they have bias, they're incomplete, but they're crazy useful. So now I think the skill set in the measurement space is figuring out how to take all of these massive data assets, put them through their paces, tame them, combine them, whip them into shape so that they can tell us what they need to tell us and what we need to hear about unduplicated media and about campaign exposure, and then just, how people are exposed to advertising and then what they go do as a result.
Cool.
So we're not sampling statisticians anymore. We are data scientists and engineers.
Yeah, certainly. So those are the big changes you see in our in measurement, or that whole idea, right? Is there anything in the COVID, since we've moved into this COVID period that you think is really going to need to change? Are there any pieces in there?
I don't know if our business is going to change, but I wonder, frankly, I wonder what's going to happen to the nature of work. And I was having a conversation this morning on that very topic with my old ComScore boss and colleague, Cam Meyerhofer. Shout out, Cam, if you're out there. But I think what we're going to learn is that, well, first of all, the one thing that we've seen, and I work at Video Amp, and we've been looking at the data in our TV data, and we've seen an acceleration in the way that people are using OTT, connected TV. There's been a long migration, I think, from linear TV to digital or streaming. And a lot of things changed with quarantine and then gradually changed back. But the migration from linear to connected or over-the-top TV has accelerated, and I don't think that's going to go back, right? So I think we'll look back on this as an era when the switch to streaming kind of accelerated. I think that the nature of work might change, right? This is kind of beyond our collective purview here. But I think companies, I know Facebook and Google, I think have both said that their employees can all work from home throughout the end of the year, and then next year they'll see. I think we're going to see less reliance on headquarters, on people coming to work and having to go in every day, let's say. And I think you might find companies thinking that, oh, we don't have to spend as much on pricey midtown office space. We can have smaller spaces and have sort of like a hoteling environment. So I think the nature of work is going to change. That'll also affect how we use media, because we will be commuting less. We will be home more. But I think we'll have to sort of see how things shake out over the next year or two or three.
Yeah. So what do you see in the future of measurement?
Well, what's interesting to me is, what do advertisers really want? Because, a lot of us that work in this business, we work for media companies, or we work for measurement companies, or we work for ad agencies, but ultimately the advertiser is all of our ultimate client, right? They're the ones who write the checks. So what do advertisers really want? And there's an initiative, there are multiple initiatives, but the World Federation of Advertisers is probably the lead entity that has been exploring this and trying to figure out, from an advertiser perspective, where should cross-platform media measurement and campaign measurement go? And I've been listening very carefully to what advertisers are articulating they want. And this is what I think they want. And it's simple but profound. They want to know, for every impression that they distribute, what device did it go to? Specifically, what device did it go to? What household does that device roll up to? What people are in front of the screen for that device? What targeting attributes can we associate with the device, the people, and the household? And then how does that particular impression interact with other impressions that have been served to device, household, and person? And what impact has this impression had on my campaign performance? It's a remarkably micro view of how advertising works. And I think this is the I was thinking about this because Leslie, I knew we were going to be speaking, and I knew you'd ask me questions like this. And so I was thinking about what's going on in the world. And I think the digital revolution has turned advertising from a macro game to a micro game. We're not broadcasting spots on Ed Sullivan to millions, to 40 million people. We are serving impressions a device at a time to individuals. And so that really, I think, is what's going on. That's what advertisers want, and that's what we're all rushing. That's the set of systems we're all rushing to build. The thing I can't help but point out is that at the same time that we want to understand to the device, who's getting the ad and how is that ad working? And literally, how is it working? Did that person who saw the ad buy the product? We're also keenly concerned about privacy. We are all privacy first. And I wonder if the shift to micro in dispensing advertising messages and the concern for privacy, I wonder if those two things are not paradoxical. That's something we're not going to be able to solve today, but it's one of those things that kind of keeps me up at night.
Josh, before we close, I want to squeeze in one more question. I know we're close to being out of time, and that is, so any leadership people that in your life that have been leaders that you'd like to call out? Is there anybody special you'd like to speak to?
Yeah. So some of that is advice that I've gotten. So one of my first bosses who ran the statistical services department at Arbitron, named Mike Acciagrosso, when he used to give me assignments, he would say to me, the reward for good work is more work. And that always stuck with me, right? And I know that in a work environment, eventually you get to know who the can-do people are, the people where if you do a handoff to them, you can stop worrying about the thing. And I've always strived to, that lesson's always stuck with me, and I've always strived to be that kind of colleague. I don't know if I've always been successful, but I've always strived to be that kind of colleague. And I always know who my coworkers are, who are those go-to people. I want to mention Steve Morris, who was the Arbitron CEO for my last 5 or 6 years there. He put me in charge of a project. And he said to me, remember, it's not your job to have all the ideas. It's your job to make sure all the ideas are surfaced and the best ones win. And I remember thinking, well, that stinks. What's the fun being in charge if I can't have all the ideas? Like, thanks a bunch. But I realized very quickly that he was right. And that has been a model for how I manage projects or teams ever since. Good management, I use the metaphor of a symphony conductor, right? It's like making sure that we hear from the oboes and the woodwinds and the cellos, and making sure that we make the best music with every instrument contributing. So that's been influential to me. And then if I'm talking about leaders, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the two founders of ComScore, Majid Abraham and Erwin Efron Award winner Jan Fulgoni, who Jan actually also was instrumental in me getting this award. And I want to acknowledge Majid and Jan. I wouldn't be here if not for those two. They built something great, and I was privileged to be a part of it. And one more thing, Leslie, before we go, I really got to say hi to my mom. She doesn't think I will, but I am. Hi, Mom. Dinner later.
Hey, Josh's mom. Thank you so much. So back to you, Scott. Thank you.
Thanks. And thanks, everybody, for this award. It means the world to me.
All right. Hopefully, yeah, it looks like I'm back. So thank you to both Leslie and Josh for that. You know, when we think about all the different ways in which things might be different or things are different in our COVID era, I have to say that this interview between these two Erwin Efron Award winners, to me, was actually like a lot better than the way we would do it in sort of more of a celebratory roast fashion in a live setting. It did, of course, miss the clapping and the laugh track that I know that you all were providing at home, but a very, very interesting and stimulating conversation, which just proves how important that award is. Not everybody at all stands a chance of getting it. You really have to have a leading intellect of the type that we've just been treated to. So thank you both. I also want to thank all of our speakers and Great Mind Award winners, especially Greg and Josh, of course, and also our interviewers for helping us learn from these industry winners. And thank you again to GFK MRI Simmons for being an ARF Great Mind Award sponsor. Be sure to check out the arf.org website to see what's coming up next at the ARF, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Bye.